Atomic batteries to power.
Now, everything old is new again. America's entertainment pop culture talk show.
It may well possess a rudimentary intelligence.
I'm trying to think, but nothing happens.
Felt a great disturbance in the force.
Hello, I'm Mr. Red.
Come on, Mark, like a job for me.
Where's the goodies? Leave the gun. Take the cannoli.
I bet you wouldn't have done anything like this if Mom and Dad were here.
You filthy criminal.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
Go ahead, make my day.
Here are your hosts, Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Over 55 years ago, Nichelle Nichols took women and people of color into a newly imagined future. And she did it in a miniskirt. It was 1966 after all. Each Star Trek has both reflected the culture of its time and imagined a more equitable future. How much did we affect the culture? How much did the culture form us? What did we get right? What held us back? What stories do we need to tell now? I've already spoken to a lot of Star Trek writers, a stunt woman, a couple of astrophysicists, a very erudite Klingon, a freighter captain, and my eyes are opened to all these new perspectives from these women who came from such varying paths to the same destination. Star Trek. I want to ask these questions of everyone I can. The women behind the scenes, behind the camera, in front of the camera, the women behind the men, the people who we inspired to imagine more for themselves. And I want to see what it all says about this journey that we're on.
Welcome to Everything Old is New Again. This is Douglas Viviani sans David Cohen. He's, believe it or not, off Broadway this week, his last week of the play Seminar. So he's having some fun there in place of our usual co-host. We have a special guest star that you're used to. You've heard a couple of times, Angelica Viviani, my 15-year-old daughter, who is quite apropos to what we just heard there. Who was that? We'll find out in a moment. Angelica, say hello.
Hello.
All right, so there she is. And we have a special guest this week. Her career began in the 1970s on Broadway in such productions as My One and Only. She was seen in the 1977 horror film The Sentinel, and through the 80s, all over television. Hunter to MacGyver, Remington Steele, to Highway to Heaven, Night Court, In the Heat of the Night, Matlock, Doogie Howser, 30-something. But let's get to the heart of it. We all know that this show looks at the past, and with a little bit of a touch of Star Trek, we always have a Star Trek reference, and now we have a real Star Trek reference because in 1990, our guest was on Star Trek Deep Space Nine as she starred as Kira Nerys, and she returned to Broadway thereafter as Roxy, and we'll talk about that a little bit in the play Chicago in 2001, and that she was there before and after the unfortunate events of 9/11. We may mention that a little bit, and then she returned to television, Dark Angel, Frasier, so many different things, Family Guy, and most recently for us, Star Trek Lower Decks. So we'll talk about some of these things and welcome the author of a brand new book that you've got to get. This is perfect Christmas gift for all. Star Trek, Open a Channel, A Woman's Trek. Nana Visitor, welcome to Everything Old is New Again.
Thank you so much. It's really good to be here with both of you.
That's great to hear. Thank you so much. It took us a little while to get warmed up here and rolling. I just wanted to talk about you and this book for a bit here because it is so interesting. It's called Open a Channel, and I see that within that you're trying to make a mark, so to speak, on the world, and your name. Have you heard this before? Nana is a regal name of the people of Ghana, and it's a title for monarchs and king and royalty, and associated with the most utmost and respected influential figures. A title steeped in fortune, responsibility, admiration, one who will fearlessly make their mark on the world. And I think this book, Star Trek, an open a channel, a woman's trek, will start to make a mark on the world. Did you know that? Was that something new?
No, that is something new to me. I usually get, that's my grandmother's name.
How about that? Okay.
And now that I'm a grandmother myself, actually, she does not call me Nana. She calls me Ganga Mama, which sounds kind of It's like it's a tough name, right? I kind of like it, Ganga Mama.
Sounds like you'll be in The Godfather 4 with that name, kind of. Right? But back to it. That's terrific. I'm glad that we could bring something new to the table. That's what we always try to do with our show here on the radio. And with your introduction in this book, you have a quote that I want to say here is, let's talk on the bandwidth that for me through all these years has started with a smile of recognition for each other. Can you kind of introduce us a little bit as to kind of what you mean by that? What bandwidth are we opening? What channel are we trying to open with this book?
Yeah, I see Star Trek as a frequency that we can meet and talk on. And the minute we're there, we kind of understand the ground that we both stand on. I find that we enter, if we love Star Trek, with hope for the future and an idea of that diversity serves us all. And this is from a chaplain, a wonderful young woman who told me that the tenets of Star Trek told her to have hope, to have courage, and to remember that you are never alone. And those are wonderful starting points for any conversation. And it's an amazing thing to meet people literally all over the world and have a starting point. And it's Star Trek.
Isn't that wonderful? It's something that goes back to me to the 60s, of course, that I was growing up. I saw it on reruns, but I absolutely loved it. And one of the things that I loved, but it was subconscious, was that the crew was from all different backgrounds and all, argued sometimes, but for the most part got along, had disagreements. It's okay to disagree. It's okay to have different points of view, but then come to a solution to try to resolve the problem together. And Nichelle Nichols, who I met a number of times, and she's told this story in the past. I'm just going to play a little bit of a clip here so we can catch up on this clip, and maybe we can follow up, because you start the book, and let's just explain, you do speak about just about every woman that has been in Star Trek in terms of a regular, and some behind the scenes and some guest stars as well, and what their experience has been. And that's through the years from the 60s till now. And you explain how things have changed a little bit. Let's just talk a little bit, or have Nichelle tell us a little bit about the historical references here for the 1960s when this all started.
I told Gene after the end of the first
recording
season
stopped
that I would not be returning to the show, that I wanted to return to my first love, which is musical theater. I was told that Van wanted to meet me, and I turned and looked into the face of Dr. Martin Luther King. I was breathless. He says, yes, I'm the Trekker. I'm a Star Trek fan. And he told me that Star Trek was one of the only shows that his wife, Coretta, and he would allow their little children to stay up and watch. And thanked him, and I told him that I was leaving the show. All the smile came off his face, and he said, you can't do that. He said, don't you understand that for the first time, we are seen as we should be seen? You don't have a black role. You have an equal role. And when I went back to work on Monday morning.
And so there we go, a little something from Nichelle. And you do explore a lot of this and other things with the guests that you've spoken to in person, such as Gates McFadden, Denise Crosby, Jess Bush, Kate Mulgrew. But let's talk about some you don't interview, and you've become, I think, an expert in Star Trek in some ways, because you've gone across all the series. But let's talk a little bit about Nichelle, how she has affected and kind of kickstarts this book a bit.
I think we all stand on the shoulders of Nichelle, and I think her taking on the responsibility that he offered her was an example for all of us. It also helps that, we went to conventions while we were filming and saw what a big impact the show and our characters had. And there's so many of us who have taken that responsibility very seriously. But she was, if you get a chance, see a documentary called Woman in Motion, because it really shows you how much work she did for people. after Star Trek, she worked tirelessly to get children involved in science, to get people of color into the space program, to believe that they could be astronauts too. And she had a huge effect. I mean, a marked effect on all of that. And she was a decent, wonderful human. I would meet her at conventions, and she was someone, look, it's easy to forget people's names. It's easy to forget if you've met them or not when you meet so many. And I didn't even expect her to. She was one of those actors who remembered who you were, who had a deep conversation, looked in your eyes, and made you feel like you were on an even playing field with her. She was just a lovely human.
And a foundation of the book, I would suggest, just the beginning of our discussion with Nana Visitor on Star Trek, Open a Channel, A Woman's Trek. We'll be back right after this, and everything old is new again.
You're listening to Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Hi, this is James Naughton. I've been an actor all my life and a director, done a little singing along the way. You are listening to Everything Old is New Again radio show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
You give me fever.
Remind you of anyone?
When you kiss me, fever when you hold me tight. Fever in the morning, fever all through the night.
We're here with Nana Visitor on Everything Old is New Again, enjoying a conversation about Star Trek, Open a Channel, A Woman's Trek, a great book. Not, by the way, I mean, it sounds like it's just for women. It's not. I read the book. It's terrific. If you want to understand women better, if you want to relate to women better, and if you want, if you're a man and you want to really dive into the struggles that women have had through the years, this is the book for you too. And it just speaks to so many different issues and so many different topics. We can't begin to cover any of them in enough detail. We're just kind of fly by here. We had James Naughton there introducing us, and he was in Chicago, won a Tony for what's his name? Billy
Flynn.
There you go. Billy Flynn here with Angelica as well in Chicago. So I'm going to take a turn just for a moment because Angelica, my daughter this is selfish now, but I think the audience is going to love this because let's face it, this book speaks to women too, does it not, Nana? I mean, that's the purpose. Some of the purpose of the book is to speak to young women and provide them some history and some education, correct?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. We have so much information out there, but this intergenerational communication offers an arc of experience that it's like a shorthand. People can't always read 3 books on, what's happened or take the time to critically think about things. Elders can help with that. We can do a shorthand of, hey, this is what happened. This is what can happen. Stay aware. And by the way, the information coming the other direction is just as important and needed.
It keeps us young. I started late. I don't want to say my age, but I started late having children. I'm 62 and Angelica's 15 and she keeps me young. And part of that is going to see her perform in high school. Now she's 15. She's a, what would you call that? That's a sophomore. And she just got the role. The high school play is going to be Chicago. And drum roll, she just was cast as, Jel?
Roxy Hart.
There you go.
That's the role.
So we could not let this opportunity go without having Angelica try to pick your brain a little bit here on Broadway, maybe acting, whatever's on her mind with respect to that character in particular or Broadway in general or acting. Take it over, Joe.
Hi. So I was wondering, while you played Roxy Hart on Broadway, what was your favorite thing or favorite trait about her that you enjoy bringing to the stage the most?
That she was childlike, and open, and you don't associate being going after what you want as being childlike, but just think about it. Think about a child wanting a cookie that's in the, that's on the top shelf. They can be really, really pretty interestingly smart about how they get it. So those two things together, I think, made her really interesting because she wanted to be a star.
Thank you. Going off of that, like, what acting advice do you have for me specifically? Because I'll be playing Roxy in the upcoming months. Is there any advice or helpful tips you think I should know?
I heard something remarkable from Maya Angelou, a video clip of her, and she said the most wonderful thing that I will use myself next time I'm on a stage. She said, no matter, for whatever reason, she is about to go on stage, whether it's a performance, a reading, whatever it is, she says, all right, now, she gathers everyone who has ever been kind to her, Black, white, gay, whatever, all, she says she takes a rainbow of people who have supported her, who have been kind, and she says to them, and passed on, and she says, all right, now, let's go. All of us together, we're doing this, so that she feels the support of everyone who has mentored her, been kind, shown her the way, and feels them on stage with her. And that's a wonderful, I don't want to get too complicated about it, but going on stage, for when you get to this wonderful place, you won't always get there, but you flip to this place where you can't really tell time. Time slows down or speeds up, but it's kind of like this power place, and you feel connected to the audience and a connection to everything in your life. And it's kind of like being supported. It's as if air is solid and you are completely supported by it and free to let your brain do its best. You're not doing your best when you're watching yourself. That's your prefrontal cortex turned on and judging. You are your best when you drop down into the rest of your brain and just suppress your prefrontal cortex and allow all the information, because our subconscious has so much information in it. We allow all of it to come out. We allow our instincts to come out. And that is that's called being in a flow state. And it's the thing that is most rewarding about being on stage.
Thank you so much. That's really cool. I appreciate that. Also, I was just wondering what it was like to be performing in Chicago, in the city, if you're okay to talk about it, after the events of 9/11.
It was shocking, heartbreaking. It was when I realized, I remember my little boy, probably 2 years before that, trying to comfort me about something and saying, but Mama, you're a performer. And performer felt like, I don't know, juggling apples. And it just, is that what I'm doing with my life? I wasn't sure that that could be
recording in progress.
That could be fine for some people, but I felt like, what am I doing being an actor? And the night we went back to performances, and I believe it was 2 days after the event, we had 1 day off and then we were called back. And I suddenly realized what actors do. And we help people stand back up, because I was scared. We didn't know how many planes there were, if there were more coming. We certainly thought that the theater district, 42nd Street, Times Square would be hit. And I used to bring my boys with me to the theater, and they do their homework in my dressing room. I had a big dressing room. And I said, no, you have to stay home. And it was because I didn't know what was going to happen. And yet I went. And it was important that all the actors, all the restaurants, all the parts of life that make us feel like everything's okay started back up again. And I was one of those people who needed to stand back up. And that changed my opinion of being an actor from then on.
Wow, thank you. I have one last question. What was your most enjoyable moment playing Roxy in Chicago? Because that's like such an amazing part. I, for one, am very excited to play her. So what did you enjoy most about playing this part and like with your cast? Like you were saying before, how you have to connect with your people that you're performing with and the audience. Like what did you enjoy the most about that experience?
I love the camaraderie of a theater company. That is one of the most satisfying things. And it's usually a group of people, you know, that you wouldn't normally hang out with. And they're the people backstage, and it's all a very mixed bag of people. And I loved being in community in that way. I also love the fact, and you'll find this, that once you're on stage, it's like you're shot out of a cannon. You never stop. The part really has an arc and keeps going, and you don't have time to worry about your next number. You're already doing your next number. So I love that. And there was one moment that I'll tell you about after I finished the run. There's a tradition, and I love the traditions, the rituals of the theater. And the stage door woman came into my room and said, "It's time for you to say goodbye." And there was just the ghost light on stage. And she led me out on the stage and left me there alone. And to have that experience of saying, of the ghosts of the people that had been in each performance on stage and watching. And it's a moment that will stay with me forever.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Angelica, so much for that. And thank you, Nana. That was very inspirational for all of us and anyone that's involved in acting. And we'll talk about that in a moment because we're out of time here. But trying to segue just into a moment of commercial. We'll be back right after this. And everything old is new again. Here we are.
Fever isn't such a new thing. Fever started long, long ago.
Hi, this is Lee Merriweather. You're listening to Everything Old is New Again with Doug Viviani and David Cohen. They are great guys.
Here on Everything Old is New Again with Nana Visitor and Angelica Viviani talking all things Star Trek. Open a Channel, A Woman's Trek, the new book that you've got to get. This is an amazing work. And I'm going to say a work about, by the way, Nana, you write beautiful. The use of language is so creative, but more than that, I can't say the right words because it's breathtaking in some ways that you're reading a book about, it's about Star Trek. No, it's about much more. It's about life. It's also about the courage of yourself and various women through the years in Star Trek and out. You interview so many of the stars. You the ones you don't interview, you've done so much investigation to find out what was happening behind the scenes and what struggles they had. So this is a terrific book for anyone and everyone to read. And I have to tell you, very, very impressive. Just love the way you write. Did you always, did you always have a inkling to write in some way? Did you write, poetry or stories or anything before this? This can't be your first time writing something.
I have pieces of paper, I have books, and I've always written. It's always been an expression for me. It was something I actually wanted to do when I was young, but my teachers, my parents, it was all like, no, you know what you are. Right. You're going to be an actor. And it was like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And also, I think I got into Princeton based on my acting abilities. I never went. I deferred 4 years and went, well, this is silly. I'm already working. I'm in it. I'm doing what I want to do. But writing was something, I guess, because reading is huge. I read an enormous amount of books. And that was my babysitter, my fantasy, my escape when I was young. And it's my fascination now.
How about that? And through the years, the various Star Trek conventions you've been to, I presume you've run across John Billingsley here and there. Maybe not. He's been on the show a number of times talking about books. We've reviewed books together and so forth recently. And you mentioned books. He has a library of books, and they're his babies, and he loves books. So I jump on board with that. Yes, you know that.
I have been to their house and I have seen the books, and he told me there are a lot of books. No, you have no idea. It's unbelievable. I mean, I would worry about earthquakes with those books. It's like, if we have one, I'm going to run and check on them, make sure they're not underneath them all.
Next time you're there, make sure I don't know if he does it alphabetically or not, but make sure Star Trek, an open channel, a woman's Trek is there.
Hey, you're right. I'm going to check it out.
There you go. It is something to read. And also, by the way, it's not all fun and games, and neither is life. You know, you've gone through some horrific struggles, which we're not going to get to right this second, but you do speak of kind of turning the very difficult times that you had into what's called post-traumatic growth. And you've introduced me to a new idea of learning from something traumatic and not letting it destroy your life in a way. I mean, you're talking about how you actually learned from a horrific event, which you can read in the book that you've been through, but yet were able to, though, learn more about yourself from that event. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And there are many people, so much so that, it's got a term, post-traumatic growth. It's something that happens. My favorite fact about that, and why I am very happy to have it in the book, is because post-traumatic growth is possible for people just hearing about someone's recovery. Because we so often think if we get, if we have trauma with a big T, we're destroyed, we're broken, there's no coming back. And it's not true. And realizing how people do recover and come back better. I would definitely say I'm better than the human I was beforehand. That's enormous information. I remember thinking, well, I'm broken and it's done for. No.
Yeah.
And as Leonard Cohen says, where we're broken is where the light gets in.
I think all of us can prosper by having a channel open, by opening the broadband, by listening to other people, listening to other people's ideas, and some of them you grab onto, some of you don't like, whatever, but sharing the ideas of all of these people in this book. You're not going to agree with everything everyone says, I don't think, in this book as reading it, but they're going to challenge you to think, wait a minute, maybe they are right, or maybe I should think about this. If you realize and have faith that you can get through it, and possibly and probably stronger if you have the right attitude and right help, things can always get better. And I admire you for being able to explore that in this book. And part of that, by the way, part of the struggle, and I'm saying it facetiously, is acting sort of against yourself, as you did in Deep Space Nine. I'm going to play a little bit of a clip of you as the intendant and the mirror universe situation going on with Kira as well, just to kind of have some fun here. We'll be listening to this for just like about 30 seconds.
If I can find a way back, but I will have to kill your friend. No, don't. If you knew him, he's an arrogant Terran who's lived a privileged life on my side. Let him see how the other half lives. No, it's too dangerous. The Cardassians and the Klingons would never allow it. Are you the leader of this sector or not? Oh, you know how to manipulate me. I know how I'd feel in your place. I wouldn't give a damn what the Cardassians or the Klingons thought.
There we go. And it's a little bit of you acting against yourself. That had to be traumatic in of ways I'm being facetious. But you say in the book how looking and acting those two characters force you to build a spectrum. Where with Kira, let's say the good person on one end and the intendant, let's just say the bad person on the other, made you more aware of what was your human nature and that you're somewhere in between. Can you dive into that a little bit more about that?
Well, Kira was the first character I'd played where I was allowed a spectrum, where I had the ability to have emotions that were negative, that maybe made me not such a reasonable woman. That is, so many of the characters that I had played on TV especially were for the eye of a man, and to find me attractive, to find me someone that they might want to be with, right? And if I was angry, or upset or fighting myself, those were things that just weren't allowed back then so much. And I was able to make mistakes as Kira and recover and learn and have arcs of experience, go from realizing anger as a defense to thinking politically and being able to play chess with people in the Bajoran government. All the colors that I was allowed to have appetites of all kinds. It gave me the space to realize the human I was. And really what the intendant did for me was give me perspective on who Kira was. Playing her opposite made me realize what made her Kira. And it was someone who was guileless and not performative in any way, never performing, but coming from her own center, and someone with agency, but no need for controlling others in power.
What you mentioned makes a lot of sense in the beginning. I watched this show, and I have to be honest with you, because it was totally different. You've probably heard this before. I, as a Star Trek fan, it was the first time I saw a character that's in the main cast that I was like, not really thrilled with this person. I really don't like this person.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure you played it for that, as we just discussed, you're showing a different kind of character. But the growth of that character and the way that you ended up being able to love, which you didn't think you could in the beginning, I don't think, and who you fell in love with, which was quite rewarding after all the struggles and so forth. But also being able to still be in power and still be a woman of significance, in terms of the day-to-day activities, second in command, and ended up in command of that space station, but still being able to be. There's more dimensions to people than just the one side, right? And that's really what that character eventually showed. It became one of my she became, and you became one of my favorite characters in that show because of the progression and the way that show was able to have an arc for each character, not only the storyline, but you yourself as a character grew as a person. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely it.
Great. I absolutely love it. If you want to hear more about this, and not just Star Trek, but life itself, women's struggles, women's and all of our opportunities in life that sometimes are passed by for different reasons, some pressures that are put on you that maybe you succumb to that you shouldn't have. I mean, there's so many issues in this tome. I just love this book, Star Trek, Open a Channel, A Woman's Trek. We'll be back with a Now Visitor one more time right here on Everything Old is New Again.
This is Everything Old is New Again.
We need more young talent to pursue careers in science, technology, and math. In those fields, we are still missing an adequate contribution from girls and women. I hope that space exploration can be a source of inspiration for them as it has been for me. My passion for space has motivated me to pursue my dream of becoming an astronaut. And today I have the immense privilege of serving on humanity's outpost in space, the International Space Station.
That's Samantha Cristoforetti, who is in command of, and she was a commander of the ISS, the space station. She wore a Star Trek uniform on the space station and credits it as sparking her interest in space. If you buy and take a look at almost the last page of, might even be the last page of Star Trek, Open a Channel, A Woman's Trek by Nana Visitor, our special guest here this week, you will learn all about that. She sees Deep Space Nine as a show that encourages the idea of compromise, which I love. Star Trek is, quote, perfectly noble. Nice people can still have conflicting views, end quote. A thought to me that should be heeded to this day, and especially in these days, but in every day of your life. And it will lead you down a path of a smile instead of a frown every day. Does that make any sense?
It certainly does.
Is there one experience that you had either interviewing or exploring one of these characters that surprised you?
One was Gates McFadden talking about her experience having to hide her pregnancy on The Next Generation, and how difficult that was, and how she had wanted to be able to be pregnant and show it. And she was told, no, there's another Star Trek actor who's pregnant right now, and we're showing her pregnancy. All the years that I knew Gates, she never told me my being pregnant at the same time inhibited her possibility. I was impressed that she never made me feel that. And Samantha Cristoforetti, and it wasn't about her, it was about me. At that point that I was interviewing her, I was thinking about women and what I had been through and what I wanted to shift in me. And we were just having this conversation, and she's this incredible woman, an engineer, former fighter pilot, astronaut. She was going up in a few months. When I talked to her, she was going to go up in the space station. She's also, at the time, had 2 children under 5. And I said, so who takes care of your children when you're gone? And she looked at me as if I had 4 eyes and said, they have a father. And I went, oh my gosh, because to me, whether I was working or not, the children were my responsibility. I could ask their father to help, but it was my responsibility. And to think that there was actually this partnership in having children. Oh, I'm going to the space station. You've got the kids. Okay, see you later. That was a mic drop moment for me. And I immediately ran to my husband and said, you're not helping me in the kitchen anymore. It's our kitchen. And he was like, yeah, I get it. Okay.
But what's wrong to me is to be closed-minded, not to think what you thought. Holy smokes, I just learned something from this person, and what a great idea, and you smile about it, not say, be too hard on yourself and how terrible I am to even have said that to her,
Right. No. And it's awareness. It's just awareness. And then what do you want to do with it? You want to change? You don't want to change? That's fine. But leaving yourself open to awareness. When you start to shut down, then your brain and your body are making adaptations that aren't about what evolution is about, which is us gaining complexity, always gaining complexity.
And always learning, exactly. We're going to learn from Angelica. So I got a question, I'm sure, about Lower Decks.
Oh, yes.
Because you did make an appearance on Lower Deck. It's one of her favorite shows. You can see the shirt she's wearing right now.
I love it too.
Was guest starring on Lower Decks your first voice acting experience? And if so, what was that experience like for you? And what did you think of Lower Decks prior to voice acting in it?
My opinion of Lower Decks was very high. I didn't understand why until I spoke to Mike McMahon, the executive producer, who is a very evolved young man and runs the show in a wonderful way with a wonderful thought in mind that really, when we have problems and issues, it's mostly with ourselves. And the show is an examination of that. And it's also, there are people throughout the show who made it who were Star Trek fans growing up. And you can tell all the Easter eggs, they couldn't be writing that if they didn't have a huge affection for the show. So I loved the tone of it, and I loved the purpose of it. Doing the show is always kind of a lonely experience. You're in a dark room with a microphone and a disembodied voice telling you what's going on and the video in front of you. You have to bring the energy, and you have to have a kind of a sense memory of what it's like to actually have people around you doing a scene together, feeling like you have the immediacy of a person, a breathing person there. But they were lovely. It was a lovely experience. It wasn't my first voiceover. I've done many Family Guys, and my husband loves the show. It's a little rough for me. I'll never forget, my husband and I were watching some Christmas show, Family Guy Christmas show, because he just has to watch it. I was like, oh my God, Santa, I don't know what was going on. He killed the whole family, something horrific. And I was like, okay, that's it. I can't take it anymore. And my husband said, Nana, look at the credits. You played the mom. All right, I'm a part of it.
There you go.
Obviously, like you said, it is, like a lonely experience, which is much different from, acting on a stage or possibly like film. What is the most, in your opinion, like the most noticeable challenge or difference you experienced voice acting?
For me, it was to remember to, when you drop a thought in your head, let's say there's something that you're scared of. And by the way, this is how it works for us. We drop a thought in our head. I forgot my homework. And your heart races, your blood pressure goes up. There are physical reactions and responses to what you're thinking. And that somatic connection to our brains is, to me, very important when you're acting. I would remember not to be a disembodied voice, but an embodied voice with a body who has responses and reactions to what's going on.
And along those lines, you interviewed Tawny Newsome, who's a Mariner on that show, and give her a tip of the cap to bringing comedy for the first time to Star Trek and participating in that with her skills from Second City. And it was just a great chapter as well, just trying to introduce the idea that if you read Star Trek, Open a Channel, A Woman's Trek, you're going to hear about all of these shows behind the scenes. You're going to hear about discussion directly to Nana Visitor. You're going to hear an investigation of these characters, amazing pictures. I don't know where you got all these photographs from. It's an amazing book that way as well.
Great.
It also takes and shows the progress from the 60s, from, let's say, Yeoman Rand through Voyager's Captain Janeway to Discovery's Michael Burnham to today's, Strange New World cast. And so it shows how far we have come. The question is, are we there? Have we done everything that needs to be done, or is there still more to do?
There's always more to do. And it's really hard to look at what, I can look back at the 90s and understand really clearly what the culture was telling me I should be. A barrage of messages from TV, magazines, people who were advising me, friends. There was a whole cultural message of what being a successful woman was, or human even. I think it's hard to, maybe we could get a few clues of what the messaging is that is catching us from being just the people that we actually are, the humans we actually are, instead of trying to pour ourselves into a certain type of bottle. That's probably one thing I would look at right now, is that young women, I feel like there's a very typical shaped bottle. And it's a weird thing, because Hourglass women were, they tried to gain some power by going, hey, it's okay to be any size. And then suddenly that is the thing everyone is supposed to be, instead of one of the colors in the palette that we have.
The infinite diversity and infinite combination that we have learned from Star Trek all the way back to Amok Time with Mr. Spock, and hopefully are trying to live to this day. Certainly, you mentioned, and we're closing out here, but I just want to go full circle, because you do also mention the history of Hollywood in the early days. I think it was in the 20s, when women were in charge, and women did a lot of production, a lot of writing, and along the line that was lost. So certainly we want to just tip our hat to say, listen, we've come a long way, but let's not stop, as you just mentioned, but also let's not go backwards either. Let's continue to progress.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a balance, because there's an ancient part of our brain that feels that if we're thrown out of our society, our group, that we will not make it. And it's true, we need each other. But that becomes a stagnant place to be. You're right. If you think you must fit in, and you don't find your group and find the freedom in that group.
You want to have fun along the way. And if you want to have fun reading a book, enjoying a book, if you just want to look at the pictures, they're amazing. Star Trek, Open a Channel, A Woman's Trek by Nana Visitor, a great, great present for the holidays. Thank you, Nana, for spending so much time with us here on Everything Old is New Again. We look forward to having you back in the future if you like, and we're so happy to have you. Thank you so much for being on Everything Old is New Again.
Thank you so much. It was a blast.
All right, we're back next week for more fun, thrills, and adventure on Everything Old is New Again.